Dizzle. This is a simple roll and write game published by Stronghold games. I received my copy a couple of days before Gen Con, and I didn't have time to play it before I went to Gen Con. Then I went there and I tried it. I played, well, the copy that I had there. This way I didn't have to use my score sheets. That's not a big deal. The game comes with a good number of score sheets. Rather, the reason is that Joel Eddy, reviewer extraordinaire, was there and I played the game with him. Then I came back home and I played it with my wife, who's not a committed gamer. Then I played the game with my daughters, that are 7 and 9. And I can already tell you that everybody enjoyed it. So this really is a game that from the hardcore gamers to the casual and young gamers, it is a game that has something for everybody. Now, the game comes with a pad of score sheets that are going to be pretty much the main boards of the game. Each time that you play, you need to give one to each player. They come in 4 versions. They're called level 1, level 2, and then we have level 3 and 4. As you can see, they represent different maps, they have different icons, so they simply show different ways of scoring. The general idea is that during the game you will place dice on the board during your turn. At the end of the turn you will replace the die with a cross by crossing out the box where the die was, and so you're trying to cover different areas of the board to reach icons that will allow you to score and or to annoy whatever out of other players. At the beginning of the game, so you give a sheet to each player gets a writing implement, and then you select a number of dice based on the number of players. For example, with 3 players, we use 10 dice. A player, doesn't matter who, rolls the dice, which are placed in the middle of the table, and it's good if they are differentiated, separated by numbers rolled. Oh, this would be an interesting roll. And suppose that actually we also got these numbers here. So we put them in such a way that everybody easily sees which numbers are available. Then the first player will mark the box number 1 of their turn track, like so, and the game will last a number of turns based on number of players. With 3 players, for example, 4 turns. So the first player marks that, and then the first player picks up a die, and the first player will place the die on their board in a space that matches the number of pips on the die that has been selected. The first die needs to be placed next to a cross-out space, and next, adjacent to in this game is only orthogonally, never diagonally. So I place my die there, and for the time being, that's all that happens. The next player selects this die, and next player selects this die. Oh, and it is my turn again. The first die, as I said, in each turn needs to be placed next to a crossed-out space. Other dice need to be placed next to other dice. So, for example, I could place a 3 here and put it there, but it would not be okay to put it there because I already have a die on the board. And then you do this, and then another player does that. It's my turn again, and I place this thing there. And we continue like this. You do this, and you do this. And I do that. That would have been a particularly good turn for me. Suppose, however, that by the time my turn comes around, only these dice are available, and I don't think that I would be able to place them. Basically, if the dice that are available, you can't place them, you can choose to re-roll them. You can re-roll all the dice that are still in the middle of the table. However, if after the re-roll you're still unable to place them, your penalty is that you take one of your dice and you put it there in the central pool so that the people can keep playing. And maybe by the time the game goes back to you, your die will still be there and you can put it back, but maybe somebody will have taken it, somebody may have re-rolled stuff, etc., etc. Another important thing is that if you are completely boxed in, we'll talk about that in a second actually. So we were mentioning that you are going to place your dice there, and at the end of the round, when all dice that can be placed have been placed, all players will cross out the spaces where they placed a die, like so. Then we put the dice back in the middle of the table, and the next player crosses out their one space, and we repeat the procedure. Rolling, separating and organizing, picking up dice. So the first one needs to go next to an X, and the following ones next to a die. Suppose, for example, that now this time I do this, for example, and then that would have been a bad idea because now I don't have a 5 or a 4 to place there, and those are the only things that I can do. And suppose then instead I did that, which is next to a cross-out space, and then later I do that. Still not super great. Suppose that, however, that when all is said and done, for example, my score sheet looks like this. I wanted to explain the concept of boxed up, of locked in a corner. Suppose the beginning of my turn, I decide to take this 5 and I place it here. Now there is no adjacent area where I could put a die. The next time that I play, I'm allowed to take any die that touches one of my X's and put it there, wherever. Basically, you cannot jump from one area to the other. You have to stay next to your previous dice if there are empty spaces next to them. If the last die that you place closes an area, so it's only at the dice, edges, and cross-out spaces, then you're allowed to jump, which is a very powerful, important strategy, because if you end the turn with a single space like that, chances are that you'll be able to place something there, and then the next die you will have a lot of freedom, and maybe I do like this, and maybe I do like this. And oh, there was a 3. Did you see that? And maybe I do like that. And at the end of the turn, you know the drill. So we continue like this until all players have taken the first turn. Then starting again with the first player, we start marking the second. We go around and we go around like this until the end of the game. At that point, we evaluate each board. For example, on this board, each gem that I cover is worth 3 points. Each line, each row that I completely fill up is worth the number of points indicated there, and each column also its number of points. If I was able to connect or to cross out both puzzle pieces, that's 10 points. When I reach a bomb, every other player needs to draw a dark cloud in the corresponding bomb space on their score sheet, unless they also cross it out at the same time in the same round, so they're safe. So if I cross it out and you didn't, you get to black out that space, and at the end of the game that will be worth a penalty of -2. Other things are pretty self-explanatory or fairly intuitive. Gems with different values, keys that you need to cross out to be able to then cross out, to place dice and cross out locks. Where is it? Poops. I think it's pretty much self-explanatory, which is important because if you can place a die, you must place a die. Rockets will allow you then to travel to a planet, so when you cross that out, you can cross another planet, so you can reach these funny areas here, small areas that score when you complete them entirely. These flags here, depending on who is the first player to cross them, and then the second player, you'll score different things. And a similar idea also when we are at level 3, which actually is before level 4. But you get the sense. This is how you play Dizzle. I like roll and write games. I don't know what is it that makes them so fascinating. Maybe, well, on top of good gameplay, maybe it's just the connection you have with the game, the connection you're writing on the game. These are maybe mini legacy games. They're games that get consumed as you play and therefore become representations of the impermanence of the human condition. I don't know. I know that as a style, I like it, and I also like the specific manifestation of that idea. Dizzle is fun. Dizzle is fun. Anybody played it with enjoyed it. As I said, from committed gamers, casual gamers, young players. I also play solitaire, and it works. It works that way. In solitaire, after you pick up a die, you roll 2 other dice that may remove some of the remaining dice in your pool, simulating the fact that other people would get dice from the general pool if you were playing against them. And you're playing for points, which you're doing anyways, even in the multiplayer solo, and it really works. So there is that also, by the way. It works so well in solitaire, probably also because when you're playing against other people, at least in part, it is multiplayer solo, but not entirely. I see that you're going for a bomb, then maybe all other things being equal, if my board allows me, I'll try to go for the bomb too, to be able to get it at the same turn as you, so I don't suffer the ill effects, or maybe get there even before you do. All other things being equal, I see that you need a certain number, I can place it, then I take that from you. And it's so still indirect that even if it happens, it doesn't feel like all that take that. It doesn't feel that confrontational. And of course, that happens especially with low count of players, especially with 2. If you have 3, 4, probably people will not spend, will not want to spend too much time looking at everybody's board. But in general, even if you don't look at everybody's board, there is this idea, well, there is only 1 6 and there are 4 4s. So if I need, if those are good numbers for me, all other things being equal, maybe I'll go for the 6. So I remove that option for somebody else. I'm sure that I can do it before somebody else takes it. I would almost say the presence of other people affects your decisions and makes it not multiplayer solo more than the actual specific decisions that they make. And the kind of decisions that you make in the game are very simple. Place a die next to an X, or place a die next to another die. But they're satisfying. Satisfying because you have to build towards certain objectives. There's nothing that you score basically that you get with in a single die roll or in a single turn. You have to build to it. You have to try to end the turn with as many open options as possible, or you really commit to a single option, especially if you're the first player that is gonna get from the pool, then you know that there are good chances, even if you start with only 1 or 2 options, that you'll be able to at least get a die out from there. But now, what are you committed to? It all depends on, again, on what's available at that point. And if you're sitting, well, if you're the 4th player, then maybe, you know you'll be the 4th player. Next turn, you know you start from a smaller pool, then you will risk a little less, and at the end of 1 turn, you will leave more options open. There are all these little things that are not inconsequential, that give you the sense that gameplay, the good gameplay, is rewarded, and then make the game for this rewarding to play, and despite the massive randomness that you have, of course, when you have dice and a lot of them get rolled. And yet at the same time, I did get the sense that better gameplay resulted more often than not in better outcomes, and therefore that if I won, I had the satisfaction, and in fact I had done things that matter in there. The production is very nice. I think these little boards look very nice. The icons are incredibly, I was going to say counterintuitive, just because when we talk about intuitive, usually say to complain about it. What I meant is the opposite. The icons are incredibly intuitive. You probably don't need to read much about them in the rulebook to figure out what they do. In fact, some friends of mine, game night, they also played it, and they didn't read the rulebook. I told them about the mechanics. They figure out the icons by themselves. Also, next to the main board, you have those, not explanations, but the way they score becomes pretty easy and intuitive. I like Dizzle. I like Dizzle a lot. For such a simple, straightforward game, you could play it as a filler, between two games a game night, you play a single level, it can become a pretty good course in your game night meal of delicious designs if you play all 4 levels. There's also that I like a lot, which is variety in gameplay, as the 4 levels do play different from one another. So in general, I'm very pleased with Dizzle. It's a fun game and one that everybody can play.